What is going on, guys? PXCam20 back again with a brand new video. We are here for our brand new week of daily races, as I was actually really happy about this week for daily races, as we are racing at Mount Panorama in Australia in our Group 3 cars, and I was really looking forward to this. I haven't been at Mount Panorama in a long time. I think the last time they did a daily race here was maybe 3-4 months ago, so again, I was just very happy that we were able to get something different besides Brazil or Nautopolis or etc. You know, one of those tracks that we keep coming back to every single week. But nice to see a little bit of a switch up here as we are in our GTR starting in 14th place, as we were only able to get a 204.3. I've been trying all day to try to get a better time, but unfortunately this is as fast as I can go today. But we're going to see if we can try to improve our lap time a little bit further into the week, and hopefully we can be a little bit more towards the front as the week ends here on these daily races. So before we jump into the race, if you guys really enjoy the content, please subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video, as it really helps out the channel when you guys do so. Anyways, that's enough promoting myself. Let's jump straight into this amazing race. Now, as we come into the race, again, we are starting in the back of the pack, as I just haven't been able to improve my lap time, as we have a lot of Vipers in the lobby, as well as some Beetles, some AMG GT3s, some GTRs, 911s, all types of cars, basically, you name it, as we are waiting for our 3-2-1. We get it here, and we are a go now as we're coming out of the final corner, heading down to the start finish line. As you can see, the GTR gets a little bit loose ahead of us, but coming down to the straightaway to the start finish line, we are on our first lap now as we head into turn number 1. Coming to turn number 1, we're trying to stay right behind the green GTR ahead of us. As you can see, he's just still very squirrely now, as we're going to fast forward down the straightaway, leading us into the beginning part of the mountain for the first time. Coming to the mountain, the GTR ahead goes very aggressive into the inside of the Brazilian, makes contact with him, pushes him out, and the Brazilian has to let him go now, as the American just, I don't know what he decided to do. He looked like he didn't even brake, just pushes out the Brazilian, and somehow he didn't get a penalty, but he is able to make the overtake on the Brazilian, and feel a little bit bad for him as we are coming to the middle part of the mountain section now. So still on the uphill part as of this amazing track, as we are coming to the middle part now. That's going to lead us into the bottom part of the mountain. We're staying right behind the Brazilian here, as we don't want to push it too hard as our first time, but we do make contact with the wall, get a little bit forced wide onto the grass, and we have to let the Canadian go through, as this part of the track is the single file part of the section. If you can make an overtake on this track cleanly on this section, then I honestly praise you so much, because again, this is just a single file part, as we do get some yellow flags here, and you can see the Volkswagen Beetle ahead of us getting a little bit squirrely, as I believe he did mess up some part into the mountain and lost a lot of position. So coming down to the final part of the lap, as we're coming to this long straightaway, we're going to head to the final chicane here, as we brake right after the 150-meter board. Coming to the left-hander here, the brake, the Volkswagen gets a little bit loose, as you can see a couple cars are now off into the grass. Another Brazilian is trying to get onto the track. A couple more cars are spinning, as one of them was just doing a 360. As we go to the replay, see exactly what happened here. The GTR ahead of us in green makes contact with the Porsche, so that's like the second time he made contact with someone this race. And when that happened, the Porsche gets very loose. The red GTR makes contact with the Porsche, spins out the Porsche, but right ahead of them, fighting for first, second, and third, you can see right there the Viper comes back to the track as he got pushed out wide, runs straight into that AMG. The AMG makes contact with the wall, and he is taken out and demoted all the way back to, I believe, 12th or 13th place now, as we make a lot of positions here. And there's another car spun out, so just cars going every which way, but we're just capitalizing on all these crashes and all these mistakes that are happening, and somehow we are in 9th place after starting back in 14th, 15th position. So it was very beneficial to us, but very unfortunate for the other cars that were taken out in all that incident on that final corners, on those final corners now on the last lap. So now coming to the mountain for the second time, the Volkswagen gets a little bit loose, and the Canadian ahead of us actually spins out. Not sure exactly what happened right there, as he, I think, made contact with the Volkswagen, and you can see right there the Volkswagen now has a 4-second penalty, as he's still getting very squirrely. Not sure what's going on with him, as he's just not able to make any of the corners. As you can see, every single corner is almost like he's trying to spin out. So not sure if he has too much brakes to the back, or if he's just not used to the track or something, where he is just getting very squirrely. And now I'm a little bit afraid to be right behind him here as we're coming to the middle part of the mountain and coming down to the downhill section. Coming to the downhill section, this very tricky part. The Volkswagen makes contact with the wall and he goes straight to the left hand side, and we make an overtake there as we just capitalize on his mistake, and we are now promoted into 7th place. So in the span of a lap and a half, we have made basically half of this position spots to get us to 1st place, and we are coming a little bit loose coming out of that final section of the mountain and coming into the final corner now on lap number 2. So going into the final lap here, we have a car right behind us as it is the red Porsche right behind us, and he's trying to make a look onto the inside, as you can see on the radar, but we're able to hold our position here as we brake a lot later than him as we now come into the long straightaway that leads us into the beginning part of the mountain. Coming to the beginning part of the mountain, we're defending on the inside right here as we don't want the Porsche to come to the inside, but you can see he's coming onto the outside here as he gets very loose, makes contact with us. We almost lose it. We're able to hold on to it right here as they're going double wide right behind us, and we're able to cut off the Porsche right here as we are coming into the beginning section of the mountain. Staying right onto the inside here, we're just going to try to get through this as cleanly as we can to hold our position and avoid making any type of contact with the wall so that we don't end up spinning out or slowing ourselves down and letting the Porsche make an overtake ahead of us as we are now coming to the middle section of the mountain here. That's going to lead us into the downhill part. So coming to this left-hander as we head into the downhill S section, we are still right ahead of the Porsche here as he's trying to get close to us. You can see on the radar he gets close to us and then kind of gets away from us, but then gets very close. But we are able to hold our spot here now as we are gaining about, I think, a 7/10 of a second lead on the 8th place car as he actually switches spots now with 9th place. And we look behind us and you can see both of them have penalties. They see exactly what happened on the replay. See the red Porsche is getting very loose now as we're coming to the downhill section. Gets very loose again, heading to this right hand part of the track, and you can see that he hits tap from behind from the Mercedes. The Mercedes makes contact with him, pushes the Porsche out wide, but I think the Porsche got loose, slammed on the brakes, and when that happened, the Mercedes made contact with him, and the Mercedes actually gets a 1-second penalty as well in addition to the Porsche, and that's going to secure our 7th place here as we come out of the final corner now, coming to the straightaway, leading us into the start-finish line. We get our 7th place finish as we are able to survive a very dramatic race and lead us into our 2nd race here at Mount Panorama. So coming to our 2nd race, we are starting in 13th place in this lobby as we have a lot of fast Brazilians ahead of us. As you can see, they basically took off the majority of the top 4, top 5 of the race. And then we are all the way back in 13th place now as we are right behind Ram Doctor here, the Canadian. Let's see if we can try to catch up to him and try to make a position on him as we were able to kind of start ahead of him one of the races earlier. So he was just able to get a better lap time than us and just get ahead of us, but we're going to see if we can try to put some pressure on him as we come into the beginning part of the mountain and see if we can force him into a mistake, as there's a Porsche to the left hand side, or I believe it was a Mercedes actually, and we were able to capitalize on that mistake, as I'm not sure if he got spun out or if he made contact with the wall and spun out, but somehow he was on the left hand side, spun out, and we are able to get ahead of him now as we are able to promote ourselves into 12th place coming to the final part of lap number 1. So coming to the final part, again, there's yellow flags coming to this chicane, and you can see there's a car in the middle of the track that's ghost. I believe it was the Volkswagen, the same Volkswagen from the race earlier, the one that kept losing his spot on the mountain section, and we were able to just get in front of him and now are promoted into 11th place as we jump into the end of lap number 2. So coming to the end of lap number 2, nothing really happened throughout that lap. We're just trying to catch up to the Canadian here in the GTR. Staying right behind him now as we come down the start-finish line, heading us into turn number 1. We're just staying right behind him and just trying to see if we can bide our time and just make as much of a clean lap as we can to try to catch up to him and at least finish in the top 10, as we do have a car pressuring us behind us now as we come down the straightaway, leading us into turn number 2. So coming to the straightaway, leading us into the beginning part of the mountain section again. We are focusing again on the car behind us, but he's just too far back to try to make any type of move, but we actually lose focus, make contact with the walls, we miss our braking point, and the Brazilian's able to overtake us now as we come into the mountain section, and now we have to focus on trying to catch up to the Brazilian, hopefully retaking our position over and finishing at least in 11th place, and hopefully we can try to get ahead of the Brazilian and focus our sights on the Canadian and try to pass the Canadian as well. So coming to this S section of the mountain, we're just trying to carefully navigate our way through here as it is the final lap here, so we're still trying to push but avoid all these walls as we're coming to the middle section again. Coming to this middle section as we come down to the S We're just trying to focus on the Brazilian right ahead of us. As you can see, we gained a lot of time coming to the S section, and we get a little bit loose, but we're able to hold it together there. The Brazilian gets loose coming out of the left section right there as he clipped the dip right there. Got a very big tank slapper there as we're able to just kind of catch up to him now, as we are now on his back bumper coming down to the start finish or straightaway. Coming to the straightaway here, we're on the slipstream of the Brazilian, as we're going to try to see if he can pull us forward, and hopefully we get some momentum here to get a move onto the Brazilian as we head into the chicane here. Coming to the Brazilian, we are on his back bumper. We're moving on to the inside here. We give him a little bit of a tap as he did cover the position, and he is able to hold his position now as we come into the chicane. Brake as late as we can, almost make contact with him again as he gets very narrow into that apex, and he's able to get a good drive coming out of that corner as we're just trying to stay right behind him and try to see if we can make a move onto the inside on the final corner, but we back out of there as we were just too far back, and we are going to finish this race in 12th place right behind the Brazilian. And unfortunately, again, we just messed up heading into the first part of the mountain section, and this was the result now, as we are now going to jump into our third race. Coming to our third and final race, we get our 3-2-1, and we are a go again as we are starting in 7th place, but you can see 6th place for some reason pulls off to the side, and that's a free position for us. I'm not going to complain about that as we head into turn number 1. Setting our sights now in 5th place, we are going to try to see if we can catch up to him on this lap and see if we can get close enough to him as we come into the final section of the mountain part. So coming to the final mountain section, we get very wide coming out of the final corner, and you can see that we're just trying to gain as much time as we can on the American ahead of us, as the Brazilians just took over majority of the race. You can see they are in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, so we're just trying to see if we can catch up to them, make a position, and try to see if we can at least finish in the top 5 here as we come into lap number 2. So coming to the final corner of lap number 2, there's a car that actually gets spun out right ahead of us, and it's one of the Brazilians there as he is trying to get back onto the track, and we are actually gaining time on him now as we come into the final lap. Coming to the first corner on the final lap, we're just trying to catch up to the Brazilian now, as we do have some pressure behind us, but we're able to get a little bit clear of him as we do get a better exit coming out of the first corner than the car right behind us, and now just staying right behind on the slipstream of the Brazilian and just seeing if that slipstream could pull us up a little further, as the slipstream is very powerful on these straightaways here at Mount Panorama. But we're just trying to catch up to him now as we come into the beginning section of the mountain. So coming for the final time to the beginning section of the mountain, we're trying to just push the car as much as we can, as we are just taking as much wide lines as we can into the entrance of all these corners. You can see the Brazilian gets very wide coming out of that left-hander, so we gain a ton of time on him as we are now underneath the second to the Brazilian, just trying to put some pressure on him even more so that we can force him into a mistake. Coming for the final time into the middle section of the mountain, we are still right behind the Brazilians. We're heading to these fast sweeping left-handers as we're going to start heading to the S's that leads us downhill. Coming to this little bitty straightaway here as we come into the S's that leads us downhill. We're going to try to see if we can try to make up some time here on the Brazilian. We are able to do so here as we're just forcing our way into these corners and just thrashing the car all over the place as we're trying to get as close as we can now to the Brazilian. Coming out of to the final few corners out of the final part of the mountain, we're just trying to catch up even closer to him as we are now less than half a second to the Brazilian as we're staying right behind him on the slipstream, allowing the slipstream to pull us forward again. It's just very powerful here. We're going to try to see if we could try to get as close as we can and make an overtake before the chicane as we're gaining time, staying right behind him, and we're just seeing if we could get as close as we can and see if we could try to make an overtake coming to the chicane, but we are just a little too far back as we're taking a peek and we have to fall right back in line, but we're still right on his back bumper, so we could try to make a last minute move on the final corner here as we get a little bit loose, but again, just coming down to the straightaway leading us into the final corner, we're just too far back. And we're going to see if the Brazilian's going to make a mistake coming out of the corner, and he does not. And unfortunately, that's going to be P6 for us, our best finish so far of the day. But again, it was just P6, as I did want to get at least a P5 or a podium on this race. So very happy again to be back at Mount Panorama, as this is one of my favorite tracks on the game. It's just so challenging, especially through the mountain section, and you could just get really good racing, especially on the straightaways. It's just builds so much speed, especially if you're on the slipstream, and you're able to just do so many crazy maneuvers and crazy overtakes on this racetrack, as it's just so much fun. We're just gonna see if we could try to get a little bit faster, and hopefully we can start finishing on the podiums, or if not, getting wins here on this track, as again, this is the beginning part of of the week. So we're gonna see if we can try to get some better lap times as the week progresses. So if you guys really enjoy the content, please subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video. And if you guys want to support the channel, I have left a Patreon link down below in the description. So if you guys want to support the channel, check out my Patreon there. And I hope to see you guys on the next one. Peace out.